Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Life with Richard L. Scott. The title of this episode is it harder to love me or is it just easier to judge me? Is it harder to love me or is it just easier to judge me? I was thinking of something Pastor Timothy C. Howard said a long time ago when we planted a church together. He says, you know who loves you by those who tell you the truth. You know who loves you by those who tell you the truth. But then I got to thinking, that's what prompted this particular episode. There's two things I try and practice in life. I try to be kind and I try to be consistent, and I try to be consistent in being kind. I don't always meet my own standard. I don't always meet that mark, as it will come out in this episode. I mention that as a segue to say there are those who tell you some things, and they may think, or they may actually believe, that it's an expression of love, but it's not always kind. Excuse me. And arguably could be said in a better way, in a way where it could be better received. Pastor Colin Smith, out of the UK, I listened to his podcast some, and the title of it escapes me, forgive me. I'll try and remember to put it in the description in the comments if you like to follow him or listen. But he had a series on what he called truth terrorists. Truth terrorists, those who told the truth but were terrorizing the ones they told the truth on. And I can remember, I won't mention this minister's name, but he says that a lot of people uh, told a lot of lies on him, but they told some truths on him too, and the truths hurt. So we can express truth and can still hurt people. And I'm thinking of the authors John Townsend and Henry Cloud, most famous for their Boundary series, but they also have a book called Safe People. And in their book, Boundaries, they use this scenario about this person. They're saying you need to express this to this person, but they say if I do, it will hurt them. They ask, well, will it harm them? And the person goes on to say, well, what's the difference in hurt and harm? And they use the analogy of going to the dentist to have dental work. A lot of us, I don't want to assume all, but a lot of us have had dental work done at some point of our lives. And he talks about how when the dentist initially sticks you in the gums with the needle, there's a pain that hurts. But ultimately, with the procedure he does, it's not to harm you, but to make you better. So extending on what Pastor Howard said, you know who loves you by those who tell you the truth. I have to filter that through. Is it, even if it hurts, is it for my betterment? Or are they taking an opportunity to tell a truth that may not only be hurtful but harmful, or not necessarily mean any good of it? Now, I'm going to first use me and then tell of some examples of some things that happened to me. I ran into someone I've known most of my life, and I said something that I perceive may have, I don't want to necessarily say hurt, but I could tell it seemingly frustrated them to the point where it was as though saying, when am I going to outgrow my nickname? When is it okay for me to just be called by the name my parents gave me? That's not what was verbally expressed. That is the how I interpreted their response to me teasing them about the nickname. And that brings me to a point. I get it that a lot of nicknames are birthed out of teasing and can be terms of endurement in like something that could have come out from a long time ago. Because I can think of one of my brother and friends that we call Rude Dog. When we first started calling him that, didn't like it, didn't want it, but after those of us who continued to call him that for many years, and he not just trusted but knew that we loved him. Now his nieces and nephews even call him Uncle Rude for short, or Uncle Rude Dog. But that was birthed out of endurement, because but it started. I don't say it necessarily a tease. It actually started at a basketball camp at Mississippi College when we were high school, because he had a Rude Dog shirt on. But that's a story for another day. What's my point? My point is, we want to be careful even continuing to use childhood nickname for adults, or even for someone who's in their teens who may not want to continue to be called what they were called when they were younger. Even if it's the truth, even if it's factual, if it's hurtful, that may also be harmful, or if it doesn't add in a benefit, we want to be careful how we use it or cease to use it. I heard another preacher basically say, I think it was Dr. David Jeremiah, how he almost lost a lifelong friend for using sarcasm. So he purposed then to never use sarcasm again in his language. That was him. Let me be abundantly clear. Richard still uses sarcasm all the time. In fact, my current colleagues would tell you I have what I call meeting my sarcasm quota of the day. I use it often, but I do heed the caution that he's saying. Same what I'm saying with nicknames, a caution of how we say anything. And this is the segue into me and really what prompted me to record this particular episode of Real Life with Richard. By the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing to the podcast. Currently on Spotify, but I promise, I'm going to get it put in more places, but currently it's housed in on Spotify podcast, excuse me, and the video version is on YouTube. So consider giving me a thumbs up, subscribing, share the channel with others. And for the sake of YouTube, I am self-sponsored. Nobody's paying me, no products, no ad. I'm self-sponsored. Everything is coming out of my own pocket. So, excuse me. What prompted, is it harder to love me or is it easier to judge me, kind of came from several comments I received concerning my progressive weight gain, most accelerated during the pandemic. A lot of people can say that. So much, in fact, that the last 2 times I went to the doctor, my weight was up. My primary physician has always cautioned me to maintain, regulate my weight, keep it down. And he was saying, hey, Richard, just try to maintain. If you can lose 5 pounds, I'm happy to say I'm about 10 pounds down from the 5 goal we had, thank God. But he was gracious and patient with me because so many people had gained weight. So my weight gain is a fact. So that's a truth. But how it was said hurt me, and I want to say cause more harm for no good for how it was expressed. And I'm going to use three encounters and 3 examples and I'll try to sandwich the one in the middle between the two that were most hurtful. The first one was, I'm still actively pastoring at this time, and I had just did a eulogy. We're leaving the gravesite from a funeral, and a member says, who hasn't seen me in a while, "Ooh, you sure are eating good." No, I'm not eating good. In reference to my weight and weight gain, and they kind of smirked and smiled. I give what I call passes. Passes for Richard would be categorized as giving people the benefit of the doubt. To minimize the hurt, I choose to believe that the comment meant well to reference to my weight, but the fact is, it hurt. It hurt my feelings. And you say, well, if it's a fact, if it's a truth, why did it hurt? One, and here's the whole point of, is it harder to love me, or is it just easier to judge me? Because you didn't ask what I was going through. You didn't ask how I was eating, what I was eating, or how life was. Like life. Even pastors, even preachers, we all are going through this thing called life. And according to my friend Kelvin Andre Moore, he seems to make most of my episodes at least a reference. None of us gets out alive. But how we say things, why we say things, it's like we're rushing because we feel like we need to say something, but I don't see the benefit in saying, "Oh, you sure are eating good," and here I go practicing the sin of hypocrisy in a sarcastic tone or way, because I'm clearly not eating good. I'm not eating well. Thank God I'm approximately 15 pounds down since December 1st, 2023, when I got back on a plan to eat better. So now that I am eating good, I'm approximately 15 pounds down, from 280 pounds down to 265. So shifting gears, here is another member who said it in a more passionate way, but still missed a component in referencing the fact and the truth of my weight gain. At this time, I was probably only 255 pounds and counting. The comfort zone for me is between 225 and 235. So I'm approximately 265 pounds now. So I'm still 30 pounds north of my comfort zone for myself, 30 to 40 pounds north of that. And this time I was much closer to that weight, but I was clearly gaining weight. That was this was just before the pandemic, a couple of years before the pandemic, because our daughter is 5 now. And at the time, she was an infant. And this person said to me, they said, "Richard, you've worked so long and so hard to get that weight off. Don't put it back on." Now, I received that. It wasn't harmful, and it really wasn't even hurtful, but more so a point of frustration in that I adopted this phrase that I say, "I'm doing the best I can and the best I know." A couple episodes ago, I gave the two-step formula that Richard uses for success. One, knowing what to do, and two, doing it. Knowing what to do and doing it. But back to this thing called life. When life happens, even for the best of us, even for those of us who are life coaches, preachers, ministers, teachers, motivators, speakers, life hits us in the mouth too. That's one of the reasons why I started this whole podcast, so I can let you see the good, the bad, the mundane, the indifferent, the funny, the hurtful, the struggles, the real life with Richard. So although she meant well, And I'm choosing to believe she was trying to encourage me and motivate me, but she never asked what I was going through. She never asked what I was enduring in life and what may have been triggering or causing a weight gain. Um, Lack of physical activity, one, poor eating, but just stress. I'm actively pastoring at the time. I'm working full time. I'm fairly still newly married, and I have an infant newborn. Not to mention the other things going on in my life, dealing with an elderly parent and just being the seventh of 8 children and other life components, just life. I was trying to survive. And the end result of it, my eating was much poor. I was inactive, and that's when I started putting the weight on. And unfortunately, from that conversation to the height was a gain of approximately 40 or more pounds. I promise you that one in the middle and one more, and I'm going to reference another misstep I had and offer some points where we can all do better, corrective measures moving forward. The last one was more recent. This was just a few months ago, shortly before I got the revelation. When I saw that scale hit almost 280, and I knew, oh my God, I have to do whatever's necessary, excuse me, to take better physical health of myself, besides mental and emotional health and well-being. But a member shared with me, a member and a friend shared with me that they had run into uh, another member and a family member of the church and said, ooh, there's sure a whole lot more Pastor Scott to love now. And I'm telling you, it hurt. The person who told me smiled and downright giggled. And I don't know if they thought it was funny, but I'm telling you, it hurt. And again, I don't see the benefit in saying and sharing it, even though it was the truth. I thought of something Al Roker experienced when he had lost quite a bit of weight. I think Al lost more than 100 pounds, maybe 150 pounds or more. But I think it's right around the time he had released his book, and this may be in the book. I confess, for full disclosure, I didn't read the book. I read, saw this in an interview or read it in an article with Al Roker, the meteorologist. And he said someone came up to him and said, I thought you were funnier when you were heavier. And he says, without missing a beat, I said to him, and I thought you were smarter before you made that statement. And he goes on to say, how is it that it's wrong for me to respond to what you said, and now that you feel hurt, but you felt comfortable and okay speaking about something as sensitive as my weight? Now, let me clarify something here. I am not saying that you should not comment about my weight. One of my sisters said, Richard, you better than me for even sharing what your weight is. And I'm putting it out there. I'm telling everybody, my height, where I was, where I am. And thank God for the gift. I could practice that with transparency. And of course, it makes me more accountable. And eventually I feel like I'll lose it. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with holding people accountable, even when it comes to their weight or expressing it to them. What I am saying is we should be careful what and how we say it to make sure it's beneficial, that is kind, that is truly expressed in a way that I know you love me and where I'm not feeling like you're judging me. That's the difference. Likewise, this is another shame on me, and I really need to go back and leave off an apology to these two people. The one I mentioned previously, my homegirl, and this is a church member that I saw who too had lost weight since I saw him last. And what I said to him, I meant well. I had good intentions, sincerely. I mean that truly, sincerely. I had good intentions. Person I once worked with, Jonathan E. Sanders the first, would often say, Richard, we want to be judged by our good intentions, yet we judge others by our by our perception of their bad actions. We want to be judged by our intentions, but we judge others by their actions. So no matter how well intended I was, the look I saw in their eyes expressed that I hurt them. And what I said was, and if it's been repeated, I'm not saying who it is. I said it to them, and I'm not saying who it is now. I will go to them one on one and apologize, and it's immaterial for me owning it in this space, but I'm not disclosing who they are. But I said to them, tell me what you're drinking, because you can't be eating anything with all the weight that you've lost. And I immediately saw the disappointment and the hurt in their eyes. I never ever meant to hurt them. I meant it in jest. I meant it lightheartedly. But that's how it came out. And the moment I said it, I wish I could have taken it back. How easier would it have been of me to have simply said, you look great. You have clearly lost weight. I'm in a position where I can stand to lose a few pounds myself. Do you mind sharing some of your tips with me, or maybe some of what you've done to help me along the way? How easy would that have been, and how loving, or more loving that would have sounded, opposed to the judgmental approach. Even though I meant it as a joke, it implies that you're drinking, or that's, at least that's the way I heard it after it came out, or that you're just not eating. And you can, I still eat well and lose weight. In fact, you need to eat a proper diet to lose weight properly. So it was just silly. It just came out erroneously. So here are the takeaways. First and foremost, make sure you're not saying something just for the sake of saying it. I think we're eager and we feel as though we have to say something, and you don't. If there's any doubt in your mind, or if you think for just a moment this might be harmful, hurtful, and non-beneficial, just don't say it. Just don't say it. Just don't say it. Second, am I truly making this expression from a place of love, or a loving expression for the person I'm speaking to? Or am I speaking from a position of judgment because I feel like they can or should do better? Now, this is not just eating. This is when we're dealing with friends and family who may be struggling with addiction, other health issues, other what we perceive as bad or poor habits. And they might be. And I'm not saying we should not speak truth. We should not speak loving truth to those who are struggling or need help, but make sure we are doing it in a loving way and not in a judgmental way. Side note, in the mental health piece, one of my friends shared with me in the mental health field that they saw someone they personally knew in a mental health clinic environment. And when they looked at them, the other person saw them and listened to what the person said to them. Before they can respond, said, don't judge me, because next week you can be where I am. And a friend of mine recently said, Richard, it can come on fast. It can come on so fast. So we want to be careful that we're giving expressions of love and that we're not being judges of people. And third and lastly, let's not be so hard on ourselves. I have made plenty of mistakes. I think it was Dr. David Jeremiah who once said, those of us who speak for a living are likely, chances are we're going to say and make more mistakes than others because we are talking for a living. We're talking more. And now that I'm recording videos and podcasts, Lord help him forbid, but I know it's just a matter of time before I say or do something I wish I could take back. But just know that I'm recording these videos because they're therapeutic for me, and my heart's desire is that they benefit and help others. So we want to remember to be kind and loving and forgiving to ourselves and realize that we make mistakes because we're human and we can recover from that. And let's not just go through something, but let's grow through it, as my friend Minister Grenard McClendon would say, not just going through something, but growing through something. Thank you all for watching and listening to Real Life with Richard. I'm Richard L. Scott. God bless, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.